Hello there, gamers. Hope you're having a totally great and positive day and had a splendid spooky season. It's that time of the month again. No, not that. It's RNG time, random news of gaming, and once again we're coming in extra late and gay because holy shit. Did I make the mistake of getting into Factorio when I was supposed to be making this? Oh well. Feel free to drop by my streams if you want to witness my mad struggle with TEVI obsession with that game. But hey, since we're already late and have a lot of garbage to go over, let's jump right into it. I like to rail against the conversion to digital games over physical a lot, because that was one of the biggest steps towards removing as many consumer rights from us as possible. And every time this happens, I get vindicated, because Xbox Live went down early last month, meaning Xbox users couldn't access their games. Because of how Xbox works, it requires you to have an internet connection to just start up anything, and in order to play offline, you have to follow an obscure process that people may not know about. I said it once, and I'll say it again. Fuck the Xbox platform. Since it requires an internet connection, all physical Xbox games are worthless, and since everything on Xbox is also on PC, the Xbox itself is worthless. There really hasn't been a point in owning an Xbox since the 360 days, if you have a PC that can play games whether it's more powerful or not. And before you ponies claim this is a W for PlayStation, don't worry. PlayStation Network went down first. Obviously, this doesn't have quite the same implications of Xbox Live going down, but it's still a problem, especially if you do have certain games that require an online check-in before playing on PlayStation, and won't even let you play single player. Moving on, let's get another Ubisoft dumpster fire update because damn. Things just keep getting worse for this withering husk of a company, and you can tell Ubisoft is clearly getting desperate because there's a lot of talk of an Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag remake in the works, which is widely considered one of their best games ever made. That they would go and remake that before remastering the first three is very telling if true, but that's just rumors. The big news last month was that Tencent is getting heavily involved in what could be a potential buyout of the company. After their stock dropped 40% within the last year, it's really not looking good for this company, and listen, I honestly think at this point it would be better for us as gamers if the entire company just shut down and they sold all their IPs to other companies. Ubisoft has been a pox on the industry for a long time, and there's a massive rabbit hole regarding this company I learned about lately that I really don't want to get into here because there's too much for this video. But the TLDR is that a pretty sizable amount of the corrupt nepotism rot in the game industry as a whole, including those sussy consultants, comes from Ubisoft, and people who have worked for them in the past. We'd be better off if they were gone, and other companies could just take over their IPs. Oh, and also, cherry on top of the shit sundae, I guess, they quietly released an NFT game last month, only for it to be getting cucked by an exploit that made one player win everything automatically.
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
I guess you get what you deserve. Other than that, nobody cares about it really. Moving on to another company taking a bunch of L's, our favorite PC gaming malware company, Denuvo. The first being a study that allegedly shows a few things about its implementation, but seems to be very misleading. They claim that if Denuvo gets cracked early, there is a 20% loss in revenue, but if they are able to keep it uncracked for at least 12 weeks, then remove it, there is no noticeable drop in revenue. So if I'm reading between the lines correctly, does that mean that Denuvo causes a 20% drop in sales to begin with if it's implemented? What is the message supposed to be here? That pirates will just buy the game if they can't get it within the first 12 weeks? Somehow I doubt that. And for the other point that sales do not drop significantly if Denuvo is removed after 12 weeks, how do you even track that? Sounds impossible to me, and this whole thing is just damage control. But hey, they tried to repair their image even further by doing probably the worst thing possible, opening a Denuvo Discord server. And as you'd expect, it got flamed so hard it was shut down in just 2 days.
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
Later, they came out and whined about gamer toxicity. Oh, let me get my tiny little violin and cry in the corner with you. Fuck off, Denuvo. Your software has been undeniably proven to make games worse for people who actually buy games. Figure out a way to fix this problem, or get lost. Now, on to the rest of the stories with the quickness. Sony shuts down developers Neon Koi and Firewalk Studios, the latter of which was the team behind the most abysmal failure of 2024, Concord. This I did not expect, to be honest. I thought they would try to bring the game back as free to play, but I guess if they are shutting down the entire studio, then there's no way, unless they give it to a new team, but I don't think that's very likely at this point. There were several successful major releases last month. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which was the first COD to be released on Game Pass after the Activision Blizzard buyout. And the numbers are pretty impressive so far, including the game giving the series the push it needed to reach the $500 million total franchise sales milestone. In case you didn't know, this makes Call of Duty the second highest selling video game franchise currently, right behind Mario and now past Tetris and Pokemon, believe it or not. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero was another massive success. The game sold over 3 million copies in the first week. Not all that surprising, considering it's basically a giant fan service throwback game that a lot of fans have wanted for a long time. Metaphor ReFantazio also sold 1 million copies in the first week, which is very impressive for a new JRPG franchise, as it's rare for a JRPG that isn't Final Fantasy to surpass 1 million. And lastly, Sonic X Shadow Generation sold over 1 million copies in the first week as well. Also impressive numbers for what's basically a remaster with extra content. Now, these latter 3 games lead into a quick run of last month in localization, because we got some more censorship to go over, and it's very likely the influence of Western Neo-Puritans that caused this. Starting with Sonic X Shadow Generations, several things were changed, including Rouge's design. Again, like what the fuck? At what point will her design ever be acceptable? It just keeps getting changed slightly over and over time. I don't get it. But also, they have been altering Amy's character over the years, and now she's no longer madly in love with Sonic for reasons I'm not fully caught up with. And instead of just keeping the game as is, they decided to rewrite her bio and fix her actions in the story, like here. So now she's not super clingy towards Sonic, which is unfortunate because that made her a funny character. Now she's just going to be bland from now on, I guess. They also removed some slapstick humor of Amy pushing Knuckles into a tree, and they also removed a fucking joke about Knuckles implying that classic Sonic ate Angel Island, because that's fat shaming or some shit. It's really pathetic what they've done to this game, and it's made me lose any interest I had in picking it up for the Shadow content, which I wasn't super thrilled about anyway because I hate modern 3D Sonic. They all feel like garbage to play. While we're on the topic of Sega, Metaphor ReFantazio is kind of a weird case. Some people have commented that the localization is poorly done, citing involvement from a very infamous localizer with some questionable standards at best. But the game has also been criticized for being overly preachy about its political themes, so I think people may be misattributing the cause of some of the game's script problems. Also, since I was talking about Denuvo earlier, and Sega and Atlus love Denuvo and refused to take it out of their games even years after launch, Metaphor has Denuvo and got cracked via the game's demo on day 1. Great job.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
In Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, some of the localizers thought it was a good idea to inject modern Zoomer slang, like Trunks saying "no cap" and some other nonsense. Not a big deal, but it's still cringe. Lastly, if you remember the story I had about Falcom participating in testing an AI translator with their game Kai no Kiseki, I said not to get ahead of ourselves, but I may have been wrong. It turns out after this whole ordeal, Kondo stated that he's very open to using AI to get translations of their games out more quickly. I have concerns, but if this means it will allow them to be able to afford their own in-house localization rather than outsourcing to NISA or some other company I would rather see die, then maybe it's for the best. No more localization stories that I know of, so moving on. We have 343 rebranding Halo Studios and giving off a presentation of Halo in Unreal Engine 5 rather than their Slipspace engine. I saw this presentation and I have to say, even with my limited experience in the Halo series, this missed the mark entirely. The majority of what was said in the presentation had very little to do with why people like Halo in the first place, to the point I almost put this as worst take of the month. But since I don't want to attempt to speak on it like I know a lot about Halo, because I don't really, I chose not to. But I can at least say to just expect the next game to be a dumpster fire. Itagaki Games shuts down, except it didn't actually. For some reason it was reported that they were shutting down the studio, but that never happened. They were just changing the name slightly. I don't know. I thought it was funny. No Man's Sky keeps winning. They released yet another batch of content for the game, this time in the spirit of Halloween with some creepy alien shit. Honestly, it's impressive. This game is probably the biggest redemption story in the entire history of the gaming industry, and it keeps making me want to jump back in. I only have the PS4 version though, so it might not be all that great, but still. It does make me hopeful for their next game, Light No Fire though. Nintendo had a few stories in the news last month, including some bizarre online test thing, which sounded like it may be an upcoming game, or it could be just a thing used to test new online features. But when the details came out about it, it appears it could be an upcoming Nintendo MMO, possibly for their new system. Speaking of which, since this video is so damn late, I may as well mention the news that came out more recently that the upcoming Switch successor will be backwards compatible with Switch games. So maybe this thing will be cross-platform too, who knows. I will add that the backwards compatibility announcement is great news because that was going to be the main reason I upgrade. My Switch is aging, the cooling fan makes a lot of noise, and my Joy-Cons can't connect in handheld mode, so yeah. I'm just waiting on the confirmation that it's fully backwards compatible with all physical games without an internet connection. If so, I might even get it day one. I don't like to do that with consoles, but I might make an exception if they do this right. Oh yeah, Nintendo also had two really stupid announcements last month. Their shitty Alarmo clock that literally watches you as you sleep. No fucking thanks. Get that shit out of here. The other thing was the Nintendo Music app. What the fuck, Nintendo? You can only use it if you're subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online, and it only launched with 18 soundtracks. 18 fucking soundtracks. That's it. Again, get that shit out of here. Even with my own subscription, I'd rather just... never mind. I can hear the Nintendo Ninja's trademark coming for me as I speak. The other interesting Nintendo news that came out last month, the Pokemon leaks. And oh my god, this was hilarious. It turns out there is some very sus goonery going on at Game Freak involving human and Pokemon relations. At least, that's one way to interpret it if you want to be uncharitable. Stories like that are actually very similar to myths and legends of our own history, so if you look at it from a world-building perspective, it makes total sense. There was a ton of other info leaked, including info on upcoming games, beta designs, and cut content from past games, and more. And holy shit! One thing I learned is that we were totally robbed in Generation 6 with X and Y. Go ahead and look it up yourself if you want to learn more, but it's not surprising that game was widely considered so disappointing in retrospect. Another Tetris milestone was achieved. Last year we had the one kid getting a kill screen in the original Tetris. This year we have another kid actually getting the first Rebirth, which requires getting to level 255 and forcing the game back to level 0. In order to do this, you need a patched version of the game that prevents the kill screen. Otherwise, there is some obscure workaround to get there that probably isn't very practical. So, congratulations to Dog Playing Tetris, as he's known on the internet. I'll have a link to the original video in the description. Last story is the one that happened right at the end of the month, the release of Dragon Age Veilguard. And holy shit, do I feel vindicated putting this game on the worst list of that top 20 June showcases video I did. But if it was just that, it wouldn't be newsworthy to talk about in this video. It was the reviews of this game that made up a large part of the drama online, with many outlets using very similar, almost copy-paste talking points in their reviews, using terms like a return to form and a triumph, which has raised suspicion that these allegedly professional reviewers are not actually writing these reviews at all, and just using AI to write them instead, which wouldn't be surprising in the slightest. It also got review bombed and Metacritic thought it was worth getting involved or something. I don't care. Now, on to the worst take of the month. And this time we got something that's not really related to anything talked about in this video so far. Nah. Instead, we get to go back to 2011 for a video talking about consoles versus PC. Yes, apparently this is still a thing that console fanboy peasants feel the need to embarrass themselves about, for some reason. In fact, there were more than one of these kinds of videos that came out last month, but the one I selected is a video by a small YouTuber by the name Full Battle Jacket called PC Gamers Just Don't Understand PS5 Pro, PlayStation 5 Pro versus PC. Yeah, surprise surprise, it's a PlayStation guy.
I'm shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
And while this video is really bad, I'm gonna be a bit less harsh this time because I don't think this is one of the other kinds of belligerent dickhead ponies we tend to see on Twitter. Dude seems like a nice guy at the end of the day. Anyway, let's get into it.
PC gamers, you guys just don't understand the PS5 Pro.
Are you sure about that?
And number 1 is friction. No, not that kind of friction, you degenerates. I mean the kind of friction where, you know, you install the game and then you're messing around with, you know, video drivers and other drivers for your, you know, other components of your PC. Or how about dialing in the best PC settings for a particular game?
It's amazing how these arguments are still being made to this day. Yes, the consoles are easier, but setting up a PC is easy as well. The only way you would have significantly more difficulty setting up a PC over a console is if you're completely tech illiterate and don't know how to operate Windows, which I hope is not becoming more common because holy shit. But I have heard that the new generation's tech literacy is actually declining because of how apps nowadays do everything for you on phones and tablets and whatnot. But you, Mr. Full Battle Jacket, are making this video. You probably own and use a PC, so that's not an excuse for you. Also, the driver's argument. That shit happens automatically now, you don't need to do it yourself. Also, I'm not going to go over the entire video like I did with Harmon's because it would take too long.
On to number 2. Experience. A desk versus the living room.
You can plug a PC into a TV in the living room. You can plug a console into a monitor at a desk. In fact, that's how mine are set up. This is not an argument. Stop making it.
But for me, I play single player, narrative heavy games, very cinematic titles such as Death Stranding, or Horizon, or The Last of Us, or Uncharted.
Of course you play cinematic games, you PlayStation gamer you. How about trying something other than third-person cinematic action-adventure with stealth elements games from time to time, like a management sim or an RTS or something like that. They're really fun, I promise.
Point number 3 is, I'm sorry guys, but the PS5 Pro is still cheaper than a PC.
I don't like going into the cost argument because if your goal in making a PC is to match the consoles, you're doing it wrong. Graphics are not important. Performance is, and you can make exceptions in some cases, like if you're playing a turn-based game and the frame rate drops, you know, big deal. But I could make the argument that performance isn't as important as the inherent benefits of gaming on PC versus a console. I have an i7 6700K GTX 1070 pre-built that I got in 2016. Yes, boo me all you want. And I could still play everything except a tiny handful of the most high-end games out there. Most games I can still get to run at 60 FPS or higher by using lower settings, even with my old-ass rig.
One final point on the cost. I know me. I have no self-control. None at all. If I were to go down the road of building myself a PC, I would want the best of the best that I could build at the time that I build it.
That sounds like a you problem.
Reason number 4. Portability.
I'm skipping the portability argument because it's not important.
And so reason number 5, and this one, from many people's perspective, may be the most dumb.
And here is the part of the video that stuck out to me and made me want to feature it as worst take of the month. Oh boy, here we go.
I'm captive to the PS5 ecosystem. What do I mean by that? I have hundreds of games in my library. And I'm also a trophy hunter. Years ago, when Xbox introduced achievements, I thought the notion of this like metagame of completing certain mundane tasks for a digital accolade was pointless. Like, it made no sense. It was just plain stupid. But then I got my first platinum trophy years ago. At the time, it happened to be Killzone 2, and it took me quite a bit of effort to get that platinum. And when I got it, the feeling, like just like the endorphins, that like there's something chemically that occurs for some people. I have an addictive personality, so when that happened, I was hooked. And so, you know, I've actually bought games multiple times that launched on other platforms and then later came to the PlayStation just so that I could get the trophies.
Okay, at least he is somewhat self-aware, but holy shit. So, you've at least made the first step. You've admitted you have a problem. but instead of trying to fix it, you double down on it willingly. I don't know about you guys, but I think trophies and achievement systems have been a net negative to gaming in general. I can get into that in another video if you want, but he admits to one of the main problems I have with them. He's captive, as he says, and that's by design. One of the main reasons these systems exist is to keep you on one marketplace so they can keep getting money out of you, and for no benefit whatsoever in the place where it actually matters. In-game. Remember the times when games rewarded you in-game rather than outside of it, and not just with microtransactions? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Why did I say that? I don't know. Listen, guy, it's fine if you prefer PlayStation, but you gotta realize when the company is just taking you for a ride, and you were so close to getting there. This undeserved loyalty is going to bite you in the ass eventually, especially when it comes to a company like Sony that's pretty much becoming the Apple of gaming, with no games.
One game, I don't know why.
Look, I had to at least once. Anyway, don't be a corporate slave, or a corporate captive. Just don't do it.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
There were a few showcases last month, the first being the Xbox Partner Preview on October 17th, which was mid. There was the Indie Horror Showcase on the 24th, which is pretty self-explanatory. And last, the Fall 2024 Premium Direct on the 28th. As always, I'll have links to each of these in the description. Now, time to get into the releases. Of course, it was Broketober, so there's a buttload of them. Let's get this over with quickly now. Starting with Kill Knight on October 2nd, a badass looking isometric shooter bullet hell game. Pinball Spire on October 2nd, a pinball Metroidvania? Now you've got my attention. If you liked Yoku's Island Express, maybe get this a look. Gnomes and Knights on October 3rd, a dark fantasy first-person RPG with low poly graphics and roguelite elements. Hell of an Office on October 3rd, a fast-paced first-person shooter with precision platforming where you try and escape an office in the underworld. Parcel Corps on October 3rd, a bicycle-based delivery game where you go off the walls to get to your destinations on time. Seems to need some work though. Victory Heat Rally, a retro racing game. What more do you need to know? Amarillo's Butt Slapper on October 4th. I don't know if I can show this on screen. It's a clicker, where you click to slap the butt. And it's free. Don't say I never do anything for you guys. Go get it. Diplomacy is Not an Option came out of early access on October 4th. A city builder tower defense RTS. Who needs diplomacy when you have destruction? SpongeBob SquarePants The Patrick Star game came out on October 4th. Another 3D platformer follow-up to the previous SpongeBob games that are all pretty damn solid. Will this one be just as good? Anima Flux on October 7th, another sci-fi Metroidvania. Another one to the list, another one that I don't have time for. You know what? I'm gonna have to figure something out for that top 20. Oh well. Beloved Rapture on October 7th, a fantasy turn-based JRPG, or more like gay RPG. Get it? Because I guess the characters are gay or something according to the tags? I'll see myself out. Rebots on October 7th, a first-person sandbox automation game where you command robots to gather and do stuff, all in the name of space capitalism. Traveler's Hymn on October 8th, a 2D adventure RPG with exploration, crafting, combat, and best of all, it's another free game. Go get it. Amber Isle on October 10th, a cute little game about dinosaurs where you get to explore, craft, and manage a shop in the village. Declines Drops on October 10th, a colorful 2D action platformer beat-em-up with a very cute hand-drawn art style. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero on October 10th. Yeah, we talked about it earlier. Fan service arena fighter for Dragon Ball fans. Not great for competitive play from what I hear, but that's not the point. Last Time I Saw You on October 10th, a narrative anime-style platformer about a boy and his ghost girl and many other supernatural things in a haunted forest. Metaphor Refantasio on October 10th, another one mentioned earlier. JRPG made by the Shin Megami Tensei devs that includes our favorite element, Denuvo. Sky Ocean Wings for Hire on October 10th, a turn-based JRPG inspired by the classics such as Skies of Arcadia. Seems to need some work as of now though. Stampede Racing Royale on October 10th, a chaotic kart racer with tons of obstacles and power-ups and stuff, and it's free to play. Starship Troopers Extermination came out of early access on October 10th, a PvE shooter based on the Starship Troopers IP where you build your base and defend it against the horde of alien monsters, with or without your friends. While Mom's Away came out on October 10th, a silly PvP FPS where you try to kill each other with random shit around the house. Also, it's free. Go get it. Europa on October 11th, a 3D adventure platformer with exploration as the young android on a terraformed portion of Jupiter's moon Europa. Berggeist on October 14th, an action game with strategy elements where you must construct a tower and defend it to free your wife from a curse, I think. I'm getting some Nier meets Pandora's Tower vibes from this, might need to check it out. Drova Forsaken Kin on October 15th, a retro-inspired isometric ARPG with pixel graphics. Who needs Diablo with all these alternatives coming out lately? Neva on October 15th, a casual puzzle platformer about a girl and her magical wolf companion in some very nice looking artwork. Mech Warrior 5 Clans on October 16th, another entry in this action-packed mech combat simulation series. Big Robot Go Brr. A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead on October 17th, a first-person horror adventure inspired by the movie series? I've never heard of it, so it might be good. Arsène Lupin: Once a Thief on October 17th, a classic-inspired point-and-click adventure game. Once a thief, always a thief. Citadellum on October 17th, a seemingly pretty good city builder based on ancient Rome, and apparently has mod support. Always nice. Killing Time Resurrected on October 17th, a remake of the classic 3DO title Killing Time, featuring both remastered graphics and the original sprites. Valkyrie of Phantasm came out of early access on October 18th, another Toho spin-off featuring PvP combat in aerial bullet hell battles. Rocky Horror Show video game on October 21st, a goofy-looking old-school 2D platformer based on the cult classic musical. A strange journey, they say. Tormenture on October 21st, an exploration horror game about a game that's haunted. Don't let those spooky pixels grab your ass. Awaken Astral Blade on October 22nd. Yes, another Metroidvania with some amazing artwork that looks hard as balls. Another one. The Axis Unseen on October 22nd, a heavy metal inspired first-person horror game. Sounds like the best kind of horror game if you ask me. Ash and Adam's Gobsmacked on October 23rd, an arena-based FPS roguelite that looks like it's all sorts of chaos. Ban, the prologue of Gucha Gucha on October 23rd, another horror game set in Utagacho, Japan with all sorts of bizarro nightmare fuel, and mixed reviews, so maybe wait on it. Card NCL on October 23rd, a deck-building JRPG with roguelite elements and what looks like an isekai story, because of course. Rivals of Aether 2 on October 23rd, a sequel to the Smash clone that seems to want to be more of a competitive type of game. Not very many characters at launch, but we'll see if it can keep an audience. Technotopia on October 23rd, become the AI overlord and build the perfect city with deck building mechanics. Telebit on October 23rd, a difficult-looking 2D action platformer where you play as a silly rabbit whose teleport ability is the main gimmick. While We Wait Here on October 23rd, a narrative-based game where you serve your guests and make choices with the last customers you'll ever get before the world ends. How grim. Zero Sievert on October 23rd, a post-apocalyptic pixel-based top-down shooter where you loot and try to survive in the procedurally generated wasteland. Crowded followed on October 24th, another horror game where you are trying to deliver a certain briefcase, but are being followed by it. Rogue Flight on October 24th, a roguelite 3D shoot-'em-up game inspired by old-school anime. Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven on October 24th, a remake of the Super Famicom JRPG by Squeenix featuring Denuvo. Sonic X Shadow Generations on October 24th, we talked about it already, and it has Denuvo. The Protagonist on October 24th, a goofy-ass medieval point-and-click where you play as the townsfolk helping out a stupid adventurer. The Smurfs Dreams on October 24th, a 3D platformer based on the Smurfs, and it actually looks pretty damn good, not gonna lie. Void Rot on October 24th, a metal as fuck Metroidvania that also looks hard as balls. To the list. Finding Frankie on October 25th, a first-person horror and parkour game that looks very inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's. Is Five Nights at Freddy's considered a classic now? I wonder. The Coma 2B Catacomb on October 25th, a Korean 2D survival horror game. This is a backstory to the previously released games in the series, so keep that in mind. East 10 Nordics on October 25th, the 10th entry in this long-running action JRPG franchise. Adol just can't get enough adventure and shipwrecks. Redacted on October 27th, an isometric action shooter roguelite where you must escape a penitentiary full of monsters that escaped and possessed the other guards. Vengeance Hunters on October 27th, a classic beat-em-up actually developed for Neo Geo hardware. But if you don't want to pay over $400 for the Neo Geo version, it's here on Steam too. Clock Tower Rewind on October 28th, a remaster of the classic survival horror game with new animated scenes and other improvements. Develated on October 28th, another brutal metal as fuck FPS game that's very inspired by Doom. Be the demon you've always wanted to be, you edgy boy. Don't Scream came out of early access on October 28th, a psychological horror game that works with your microphone, trying to make you scream, and if you do, it's game over. Fruit Bus on October 28th, a casual cooking simulation game where you can also drive a food truck around and explore for ingredients and stuff. Massacre at the Mirage came out on October 28th, a classic horror experience where you go to a theater and try to survive a masked murderer's massacre. Moon Mystery on October 28th, a different kind of first-person horror game. You're on the moon, and it's haunted. Oh no. Rusty's Day Off Episode 1, Janitor on Duty came out on October 30th, a first-person shooter where you play as a robot janitor whose robots have gone rogue. These Doomed Isles came out of early access on October 30th. Use cards for strategic city building for the favor of the gods. What could possibly go wrong? Vampire Hunters came out of early access on October 30th, another roguelite first-person shooter but with a twist. Use tons of guns, be the bullet hell. Vampire Survivors in FPS mode basically. Nice. Monospace Lovers on October 31st, a precision puzzle platformer with bullet hell elements and a fantastical anime style. Shadows of the Damned Hella Remastered on October 31st, edgy and crass as shit third-person action and shooter game. Another successfully re-released game by Suda51 without censorship. I'd say the world is healing, but, you know. Slime 3K came out of early access on October 31st, another Vampire Survivors-like where you play as the slime and get revenge on humanity or something. Totally Spies Cyber Mission came out on October 31st, a 3D action-adventure game based off the cartoon, or at least the newest season from what I've read. Also has co-op. Got a few daughters you need to distract for a while? Here you go. Underworld Overseer on October 31st, a dungeon maker tactics game where you play as the villain once again, trying to murder those pesky hero adventurers. Based. Unfathomably based. And there you have it. Thanks for tuning in to this super late edition of RNG. Sorry for the lack of content lately aside from my streams, I just haven't really been feeling it, and my PC being ass is becoming a problem. Gonna have to start making money again to fix that. Anyway, I do have an idea for the end of the year RNG. Should we do it live? Going over all the news stories and releases and bad takes with the chat? And we can even pick a worst take of the year and our own little games of the year list if you want. Let me know in the comments what you think. It's an idea I've been throwing around in my head for a while now. Also, if you haven't yet, don't forget to check out my other content such as past RNGs or my top 10s like my recent top 10 favorite moments in the Legend of Zelda series. And check out my streams such as my Smash Arena I host every Monday. Don't forget to leave a like if you liked the video or a dislike if you're a pony console gremlin. Leave a comment on what you think of any of this stuff, or if you picked up any of the games in the release list. Subscribe if you want to see more infrequent content from me. Share the video around to anyone who might like this kind of content. Follow my Steam curator if you want a place to keep track of every game featured on the channel. Follow me on the X Twitter even though I neglect that platform like an unwanted child. Catch my content on Rumble or Odyssey if you want an alternative, and as always with this polished turd of an industry, have high standards, low expectations.